So this crystal is a rather special crystal. This is what I call my master crystal. And it's a kind of a little bit of an experiment in some ways. It is believed by many and scientifically proven in certain disciplines that crystals can store information. And in fact, the device that you're going to be using to watch this video is using a crystal very similar to this in there for memory and the processor. It's called silicon. You know, that's what we call it, but what its technical term is silica dioxide. And the silica dioxide crystal that's made for your phone is made in a slightly different way than is made for here. But ultimately it's exactly the same. Now this is a grown crystal. Now what I mean by that is all crystals grow. That's the definition between a glass and a crystal. This is why obsidian is technically a glass. It's technically not a crystal, yeah? Even though we define it as a crystal. But it's volcanic glass. In other words, the volcano has melted the silica dioxide, the sand in essence, it's just like sand on the beach, and it's melted it just like we would melt that to make glass, and then it extrudes it out of the volcano and it cools down and it produces, you know, obsidian. Now this is a grown crystal, so in volcanic pockets of acid there is high concentrates of mineral content in that acid, and over many years and in great pressure and high heat, crystals form and they solidify. Now granite is crystals, it's lots of little crystals, you know, that all formed together and they couldn't get big enough to actually form their shapes, yeah? Like you see in a point, like a quartz crystal, it juts out points. Say with amethyst and things like that, they have a natural shape to them, which is actually the shape of the atom. Yeah, the atom itself has, in silica dioxide, has got a nucleus and 5 electrons, 4 on the base, 1 on the top. It forms a pyramid, which is why, in essence, forms a pyramid on the peak. Things like that. These side, you know, this is what is caused by the shape of the actual atom itself. Now, what they do with this crystal to make it so perfect and pure is they get quartz from the French mountains. This is who originally made it. It was actually made in a secret military laboratory for laser purposes. And they needed it optically perfect, absolutely no cracks, no inclusions as they call them, and to be optically transparent, so it didn't affect the light to any degree. So to do that, they get what you can see in the middle is like a white stripe. I don't know if you can see it on this video, but with wires on the top which basically hold the crystal. And that beryllium seed crystals load into a vat, which is a 36-foot titanium autoclave, and it's suspended in a solution of basically the liquid quartz. So they grind the quartz into a very fine powder and then dissolve it in acid to a high concentration, just like you would find in a pocket of volcanic acid. They actually add cobalt, natural cobalt. Again, they do the same with cobalt, dissolve it in acid, and add that to the mix. They heat it up to 2,500 degrees, and then put it under extreme pressure, and leave it for about 2 months. And after about 2 months, this crystal forms. It's only come out about 10 to 15, 20 mil on either side of the beryllium seed crystal. the seed is what it nucleates onto that and then grows off. Yeah. Now this eventually would grow into a huge point if it was left long enough. Find the natural form of its own particular crystal shape. And because of that, it's ultra clean, ultra pure. And this is what you need as a storage device. This is why the crystals are made in a factory that are in your phone or computer. They need the perfect molecular structure, because it's the molecular structure that stores the information. And what it is that if you put an electrical charge into a crystal, I believe it lasts about 7 million years. Yeah, is the projected lifespan. I don't think we've done any practical experiments that prove it on a long-term basis, as in for the length of its period, but you can establish this by the entropy, as it were, over a period of time, and then you would times that entropy until the point that you've lost your data, and that would give you the length of time that it would last. So the molecular structure of this is absolutely pristine, perfect, and in the perfect shape for storing information. And we live in an electromagnetic environment. Everything that you see, even me, even you, is electromagnetic, where in reality a field of energy. The illusion is biology, because when we look at biology, in ever-increasing detail, so we get the microscope out and we look and we see the cells, and then we get a more powerful microscope out and we see what makes up the cell, the mitochondria, and all these little motor neurons and motor proteins and things like that carry things around. And then we look at that, we start seeing the cellular membrane, which is only about 3 nanometers thick. It's actually a frequency of vibration. And then we start seeing the atoms all linked together in chains, yeah, which actually form the molecules. And then we start to see electrons and protons and neutrons, yeah, which make up the atom itself. And then the biggest microscope that we have, which is kind of a huge digital camera, is the Hadron Collider. And what that does is it gets stripped down protons from a hydrogen atom and it smashes them together and explodes them apart. And it's surrounded, that circle round has just got lots of different digital receiving photoplates in essence, right? That receive all different types of frequencies. It's one big digital camera, right? And it maps these things. And if you ever see, if you Google image of CERN, the Hadron Collider, if you Google one of the images, you'll basically see what looks like explosions and things flying off. And it's just these particles going through these photographic plates, in essence, and because they're positioned in a place, and then the computer knows where to position, it can show the trajectories of all these base particles that are flying off. Yeah? So, in essence, we're just made of energy. And when we look at the energy we're made of, it disappears. It's kind of fascinating. Good old quantum physics. So, technically, this will absorb the energy of its surroundings. If it's an electromagnetic field that interacts with this electromagnetic field, it gets caught as a standing wave within this field, because crystals are technically not a solid. A lot of people think, well, it feels solid, it looks solid, but actually it's an oscillator. It's a standing wave. It's a frequency of vibration that, has a beginning and an end. So like a wave we see on the sea is moving, yeah, and a sound wave is moving, right? What you can do is, if you've ever got a skipping rope and you swing it up, and sometimes you'll get two bits on each side and the bit in the middle, and you're doing it here and you're going bomb, 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 and it's two waves that go up and down, but they don't actually move down the rope. That's what we call a standing wave. And that's what this is, a standing wave. And the structure will then hold harmonics of that as also standing waves. So that's how it stores information, which is kind of fascinating. So what I've been doing is I've taken this all over the world. You'll see various photos of my alter ego, and I dressed in my Demo Bowser outfit, which I completely love, and it's falling apart because it's had a very interesting life, especially at Burning Man. And I have travelled to 30 countries in the last, well, I've been in Bali nearly a year now, 3/4 of the year. But prior to that, in the space of 2 to 2.5 years, I went to 30 countries. And in most of those countries, I went to some sacred places. So this crystal has been to Wang Yin's palace in Hong Kong. In fact, I set up an altar, I did a prayer, a setting of intention in front of the 180 odd foot or whatever it is, standing Guan Yin monument. I also, originally, the first place it went to is Sedona, one of the Earth's vortices, the Earth's chakra. And I went to the several vortices, which is Cathedral Rock, Bell Rock, and the water spring. There it is, waterfall, is it? I don't know the name of it. 2 years ago now. And those 3 vortices, which are meant to be very sacred places, have been for thousands of years from, the natives of that land who saw Sedona as a spiritual place. They would go there to get closer to spirit. They said the veil is thinner. It's where you are more likely to have your prayers heard. And I went to each one of the vortices and did a ceremony and a blessing and a charging of the crystal. It's been to the pyramid in Tulum, Mexico. It's been to the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico, near Mexico City, right? It's actually been on the peak of the pyramid, on the central point. There's a central point where you can put your finger in. I've got a picture of me with this in my, dressed as the subconscious assassin, my alter ego, with the crystal on the central point, doing a blessing and doing a ceremony, charging the crystal. It's been to the Pyramid of the Sun in Bosnia, the largest pyramid of the world, which recently was activated and has been beaming an 8 Hertz signal directly upwards. And again, that was found the central point of the pyramid, and I stayed there for as long as the muscle testing told me that I needed to stay there to charge it up to its fullest. I use processes, so kinesiology, muscle testing. Our bodies are connected to spirit, they're connected to the universe. So instead of asking my mind, I ask my body to tune in, and I use the galvanic skin response to do so. It's been to many places in Europe when I went on a road trip. It's been to Athens in Greece, to the Pantheon. It's been to Delos Island, the island of the gods, right, and blessed on there. And there's loads more places that it's been to. It's been to the Golden Buddha in Bangkok, if anybody's seen my screenshots when I do 11/11 and all that kind of stuff. My screenshot is me as the subconscious assassin stood in the Golden Buddha in Bangkok, doing a blessing, letting it charge from that ancient monument to Buddha, to enlightenment. It's been to the Buddha in Pe, Thailand as well. And I went to various spiritual waterfalls, blessed and sacred waterfalls, and blessed it and cleansed it in the waterfall. Now, I could go on. There's many other places, water ceremonies in Bali. And soon I'm going to be taking it to a very spiritual mountain in Bali and doing a ceremony and blessing there. It's been blessed by a top Guan Yin priest. He's the main Guan Yin priest of Beijing, the most powerful, shaman. I don't think he likes the word shaman, but that's the kind of essence. And he's got lineage. He was brought up in a family which his family were priests and priestesses and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, for many, many generations. And he did an activation and blessing on this in Marrakesh. He said he felt the power and energy from it. And I told him what my intention is with this. My intention, you know, this crystal was actually used by some of the most powerful shamans in Siberia over 30 odd years ago. And it's where it was discovered. That's why it's called Siberian Blue. It's blue and it was found in Siberia. And the shamans there, some of them, you know, Siberia is the originating place of all shamanism. Shamanism is a Siberian word. They were using it because they found it was the most powerful healing crystal they've ever used, and the most powerful for opening up what they call their spiritual sight. Yeah, their pineal gland, their third eye. And I was fortunate enough to acquire all the rest of the stock that's available on the planet. It's about 230 kilos, about 200 of these blocks, to make shamanic tools. It came to me in such a spooky way, and my goal is to create spiritual jewelry which has a functional magic healing property. I do muscle test all of my products and the designs to make sure that they have true spiritual power. And this crystal, because it's been to all these sites, it holds the vibration. And it's kind of fascinating because I kind of do double blind stuff. People come around and see the crystal, and the feedback that I get from it, you know, saying how powerful it is and how energetic, and it causes all sorts of physical feelings in the body. Even people seeing it on the camera, I get messages, you know, saying, "Oh my God, that is just so amazing. I got a tingle all down my spine when I saw it," and all that kind of stuff. I get incredible feedback from it. And the thing with science is how we change this into woo-woo, into science, is science is about feedback. Yeah, you do something, you get a result. You do it again. Do you get a different result, or do you get the same result? If you get the same result, great. And you do that 100 times. Now, if you do it 100 times, that's usually what they class as a base minimum number to look at something scientifically, at least 100 samples. And if on every single one of those 100 samples, people turn around and say, "Oh, I have this experience," and everybody says the same thing without being prompted, without, you know, being told this, then you've got an interesting result. If you then did it 1,000 times and everybody did it, you could even say that's a pretty definitive result. Yeah. So I feel with everything that I've done and the people I've seen it and the jewelry and everything like that, I think I've got a pretty definitive result. Now, the other perspective is this is resonating that frequency and will do for 7 million years, then anything that's put near it will also be feeling or experiencing or receiving that frequency. So every single piece of jewelry, every single piece of the exquisite crystal carvings, or my Ganeshas, or my Guanyins, and everything like that, all go on my altar on top of this crystal for a period of time to charge it with all the energy from these sacred sites. So, you know, one thing that I'm passionate about, I don't want to mass produce just loads and loads of something just to make money. And this is the problem that you'll see with all these factory produced items. You know, they've got 50,000 of them and they're selling for $20. Yeah, which is great if you don't have a great deal of money and you want something, you know. I'm not saying they're powerless, but what I'm saying is there's no real heart that's been put into them. There's no intention that's been put into them, apart from just making something commercially to make money. right? Each one of our items is lovingly and painstakingly made, yeah? And the reason why I know this is because I say to my carvers, I want your best work, right? I don't care how long it takes. I don't want you to rush it. I just want you to take your time and put that love, right? That joy, that passion that you have for creating this skill and this amazing kind of way of just making this beautiful deity or symbol appear from the crystal, you know, and it's almost a meditative prayer like exercise, because one of our little Ganeshas this big will take 2 weeks of carving every day to produce, some 2 to 3 weeks, right? And when you look at the detail and the hand is that big, and it's got a palm, it's got a thumb, and it's got different knuckle joints, and it's got slightly different, like when you're there, it's got that little bit of curve in between each finger. And you look at the size of the finger, and you realize that to do that, it's so delicate, so precise. The one tiny little slip and you've cut the finger off, right? You've ruined the whole piece. So the amount of careful, fastidious precision to achieve such beautiful and mesmerizing items takes such time. And then once we have them, I take them to a spring, this sacred spring, and I cleanse them. I've got some videos of me cleansing the deities, and I cleanse the crystal of any negative energies. Again, this is believed that running water, which is incredibly clean and pure, and these are from the actual king's own well, the king's own spring here in Bali, which is in Ubud, one of the most sacred centers in the whole of Bali. And I do a little ceremony blessing the crystal, and what I do is I set the intention that this crystal is going to find its owner. It's going to find its owner, yeah? Before they're made, each crystal, the intention is that the person, my carver that's making them, is making it for somebody that's in the field, in the quantum field, yeah? And that person is already calling it in whether they know it or not. Because when they see it, they immediately will know, I have to have this crystal, yeah? I have to have this piece of jewelry, I have to have this altarpiece, this deity, yeah? Because destiny is calling, and it was made for you, specifically for you. And you're just letting it come home. This is why I don't push or sell things. They will naturally find their owners. You need to know a little bit more about what goes on behind it. So the crystals themselves can take up to 3 weeks to do one of the, the large citrine guanyin. And then the rose quartz base takes, around about a week to carve. And then the box that it sat in, the dragon box, they take about 3 weeks to carve. So there's like nearly 2 months of work into one of our top pieces, right? From all our, master craftsmen. And not only that, when it comes to me, I then do a ceremony, and for the guanyins, I use actually the priest that I was talking about, the Guanyin priest from Beijing. When I met him when I was in Switzerland, just before we were going to Davos, or was it just after? I got him to do a blessing and also to record him doing the Guanyin prayer, the chants, the Om Mani Padme Hum, because I wanted to learn it correctly, all the sounds, so I could do it properly as part of my discipline. It was actually in Marrakesh when I was there as part of the Evolving Caravan with Gino Yu, as part of the Hong Kong Polytechnic University, and many other people as well, some very beautiful and benevolent souls. and as part of what's it called again? Base. I'll remember it in a minute. And they're going round to sacred spots, specific spots around the world as part of an activation to activate certain frequencies of energy that will propagate into the world and help bring about the shift. And this is the Guanyin priest from Beijing that was doing so. And while we were there, I got him, as I say, to do a blessing on this. And again, the intention is that these go out to healers. It also creates a grid as they're distributed around the planet, where this frequency of vibration from all these sacred sites are being distributed among people, and they become talking points. Many people go, oh my God, that's amazing, that pendant. Let me have a look at it, it's beautiful. And then I go, yes, well, this is a story. It's got sacred geometry on the back by the Arcturians. It means soul purpose, and it's got the macabre on the front, which is your human light body, and light shining from it. Yeah, it's got the three moons, which represent, the mind, body, and soul, the divine trinity. And so what this effectively means, and the sun behind it, is the source of all light. So what this means is my sole purpose is to find my light, shine it to the world, to synchronize and harmonize my mind, body, and soul, and take enlightenment out to the world, to help wake the world up and bring about the dawn of a new era, of the golden era, of the age of the divine feminine, which is the chalice, the triangle, which is shaped as the divine feminine chalice. Yeah. So what the testing seems to indicate, and kind of what my theory is and what I am practicing, is using this master crystal as a charging bed, as a frequency of vibration with all these beautiful harmonics in, to charge all the jewelry before they go out. Yeah. And to infuse it with the energy of all these sacred sites. So I don't have to carry them physically around to all the sacred sites, because that would be a little impractical and would render the cost several times more than what it is. So we shall see if this works. And by the feedback that I'm getting so far, I would say it works. So I just wanted to share with you exactly what's going on and what I am doing and why I am doing it. And just so you know a little bit more about what it is that you're actually buying. You're not buying anything that's mass-produced, no heart, just for the sake of it. You're buying something which is magical, amazing, and has had several amazing and beautiful souls put their whole energy and attention and focus in creating the most beautiful piece that can possibly be carved out of a piece of crystal.